I'm not gonna lie. It's only a small selection of really good looking men that aren't prioritizing what they want over what you say you want, Bo. Because guess what? When he's a really good looking man, just like when she's a really good looking woman, he knows he's so damn good looking, he probably ain't got to concede to you. Just like she knows that. Pretty privilege is a thing. Really good looking people don't concede quite often. Society has built their head up where they feel like I don't really have to be all of these things that you say I have to be because I make up for it in looks.
Y'all heard everything that I heard, and I really wanted to get y'all thoughts on what was said by the women, and if that's even feasible, if it makes sense to y'all.
Well, it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. And the reason why I say it makes sense because I think you have to expect the women to speak from their trauma or a jaded mindset on what they experience. Because if you see the women who said had wait till you're older, they had a bad experience when they were young. So I think that's expected. I mean, you would want them to be able to maintain some type of intelligence to still put instill in their daughters that marrying, and at a young or becoming a mother young is still the most optimal time to do it. But because they're jaded, they have to lead with that. And from a women, I think this is, I don't want to say it's their nature, but I think at their behavior, at the rate of their behavior over the past decade, this is just what you got to expect out of women. Uh, they're gonna project off of their past and their mistakes. If they go into a marriage young and it fails, oh, don't marry young because then you'll fail because I failed. But not looking at all the other successful marriages. So another thing about women telling their daughters or preparing their daughters for marriage, nobody said, well, I don't know if anybody said, but I couldn't remember. So no offense if somebody did state it. Nobody's talked about how to market yourself. Looking at the market, what does the market say it wants a wife to be? And oftentimes I hear women do that because they want men to change what they what the standards they want for a woman to be a wife, and they just want to embrace them. They want them to, the women want to fix your standards. Like, hey, look, your standards should be this of me. No, my standards is coming from me. So I think you got to focus on what does the man desire. Highly probable too. Like, what does most men want in a woman he would marry? And that should be your foundation. But you still should be able to maneuver because it becomes subjective to one person. So if a man meets you, you got a little wiggle room to move left or right. But the standard should be what the market wants. And you got to study the market. Like, obviously, men want a cooperative woman. You hate to say it, submissive woman. But when you start talking about throwing that off the table, then you just said fuck what the market want. So we can't even go down the rabbit hole of the other list of things that you should bring to the table. You want a woman that don't have a trashy digital footprint, a woman who has a healthy BMI. I know you don't want to talk about that shit, but these are things that men value. You throwing thirst traps all over Instagram. You know what I'm saying? You're giving fertility cues. You know your body, like you young.
Ooh la la.
Men want that. Men in the market want that in mass. So if you shrink yourself down to your own perspective of what you think a man want, then we know why you're alone, or we know why you're failing and going to continue to fail. So I think you got to open up your mind to be able to embrace and accept what do the men, how can I increase the likelihood or the probability of being selected? And some of the shit that you think you're supposed to be might have to be recalibrated. And I'll yield to on that one.
Marcus, did you wanted to go or yet? Or you still want me
No,
to go?
Darwin actually was like the market is the market. I think we do fall victim to which is why sometimes I be laughing with some of the stuff both say, because the equalization of how men and women view each other is just not the same thing. I know y'all wish it was, and I can say it week after week, and people might want to dispute it, but it's just the truth. Our body works differently, we think differently, we have different needs, and if you try and universally apply it for men want the same thing as women, you're gonna consistently fail. Even if a man attempts to be that way, eventually your nature is gonna kind of poke out, and so is his, and it's gonna create a rift, which causes a fight in the ideal power dynamic within a relationship. Um, my age group was 18 to 23 for women and 25 to 30 for men as far as time to get married. And the reason I went up to 23 is because taking into account some people weren't raised with a family and don't have an adequate source of being able to vet a man. So within that 18 to 23, maybe you can get in a religious organization. You can find a group that can assist you in what's necessary to look for and some of the things you may have missed out on. You may have to pay for some type of coaching with an older woman who specializes in that, or become best friends with somebody you would like to emulate. But yeah, I stand firm in the experience that a man needs is not the same experience a young woman needs. The experience will be helpful for the man and it'll be detrimental for the woman. Input, output. We are biologically wired to be different. Y'all are biologically wired to be different. And it's no way to get around that. It really isn't. We can try and say that gender and biology is socially engineered, but we all revert back to that. We all revert back to it. That's my thoughts.
Because see, if you don't, because then the sheep are going to come out. You remember the sheep?
Bo, you said you had a question?
Yeah. So my question is, like, I understand that men are socialized to think differently than women. But my question is, why is it that it only matters what men want? Because when women were saying what we wanted, don't none of that matter. Listen to what the man wants so you can get picked. Why is it that we're not listening to each other to get a middle ground? Because women have needs, men have their view of what they need. Both of us have our views of what we need. Why is it that women have to listen to the men? What women say don't mean nothing because y'all don't want that no way. Listen to the men because this is what we want. This is how you get selected. Why is that?
I think so. When men answer that question, and it may seem like it's being dismissive, it's not being dismissive. It's patterns of best practice, right? So a woman can say, "Hey, I want X, Y, Z in a man," and then they friend zone those men. And then there's a different group of men who don't embody the traits that they're speaking of, and those men get the women. Like speaking to somebody that was on the opposite side of the friend zone, I see the characteristics that y'all talking about in the men that got friend zoned all the time. So it would be disingenuous for us to co-sign that, knowing, and I'm not to say that there's no truth in it, but if that's the primary personality traits that say women would say, and then select for a different group of things, a man would say you can't trust the sheep on how to hunt them, or the prey on how to be hunted. You have to talk to another hunter. If that makes sense.
Bohem, are you being pursued by the man you desire?
Mm-hmm.
And why you ain't married?
Because the man didn't have what I just said I needed.
Now, can't you see how that is a contradiction?
How?
When I say the man you desire, let's just assume that he have.
I'm talking about, this is why I'm not married. But the man currently, I desire.
No, he's asking you why you're not married to the man that's pursuing you currently. But isn't that like
a man like that?
Yeah, you just started dating him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Is anybody that is struggling to get in a relationship or get married on this panel? That's a hard admit. That's gonna take some accountability. So I probably shouldn't even ask that question.
Overnight. Nope, I'm not. I'm good.
I think this is where we have to account for pretty privilege, though, because
No.
I'm not gonna. Yeah. Because like M. White said, right? M. White said he looks at so many men that are those things, right? But I'm not gonna lie, it's only a small selection of really good looking men that aren't prioritizing what they want over what you say you want, Bo, because guess what? When he's a really good looking man, just like when she's a really good looking woman, he knows he's so damn good looking, he probably ain't got to concede to you, just like she knows that. Pretty privilege is a thing. Really good looking people don't concede quite often. Society has built their head up where they feel like I don't really have to be all of these things that you say I have to be because I make up for it in looks. Let's be real. Let's be 100%. Y'all are going to tell me there's never been a time where you might have been in a relationship or somebody was pursuing you, right? And you was like, yeah, I like if you got a list of 10 things, like personality wise, I'm 7 of them. I'm not really worried about those other 3. Face card don't decline. I look like this. You're still going to take that 7.